Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm here now to talk today about how to transfer an idea into a performance, the art of production. The reason why I'm here is because I was once a production manager myself, but also a dancer as you. So I quickly like to introduce myself, and now the click doesn't work. Right, I will go back up once again. And we start again from the beginning, and now it works. Okay. So my name is Klaus Ludwig. I'm German, but I live in Belgium, in Leuven actually, and right now I'm the financial director of STUK. STUK is an arts center in Leuven. If you want to look it up, it's at stuk.be. It's our website. And what is it? It looks from the outside like this: a space where we have about 100,000 people each year. It's a house, as you could see, house for dance, sound, and image and sound, we call it. So we have dance performances, concerts, art house cinema. We have exhibitions. So it's a quite broad field that we cover in the sector in Belgium, in Flanders, in Leuven. That's from the back side, our entrance hall. We have 8 different venues. One of them is auditorium for 350 people, where the university still gives classes and where we have lectures like the ones I do now. An empty space for residencies, our main venue with 220 seats and, of course, the stage. Quickly about my background, I started actually as a bookkeeper or assistant to a tax advisor. It was my first profession, and then I went to study business administration. And finally, I turned my hobby into profession. So I went to Parts in Brussels. That's why I ended up as a German in Belgium. And I stayed there. So I'm the second generation of Parts. But then quite quickly, I changed back again behind computer and behind the desk in the office. I became the manager of As Palabras. It's a Belgian dance company in the French community. And I did set up Cobalt Works, which is a dance company of Arco Renz as choreographer. Then I went back to bookkeeping, but in the cultural sector. I worked quite long at the Kunstfestival des Arts in Brussels as a bookkeeper and production manager. Then I went with Free Leisen. At that point, she was the director of Kunstfestival des Arts, so the festival Meeting Points. It's a festival that takes place in 9 Arab cities. And from there, I went for 1 year to Tanzfabrik Berlin, organized the Tanznacht. And then I did set up Caravan Production, which is an alternative management office in Belgium, in Brussels. It still exists. I did found it together with Karin Joosten in 2009 and left it in 2012, because then I went to STUK. So since 2013, it's now 8.5 years that I'm at STUK, at the financial director. But I'm not really here, it's part of it, to talk about finances. I will talk especially about production. If you have any questions, or if you do not understand me, as I'm not native speaking English, as I'm German for my accent, just raise your hand or ask your questions, and then we see if it comes later, the answer, or if I will answer right away. Also, I didn't want to have a Nobel Prize in layout, so this is a quite simple presentation. It's more for me, because I prefer to speak freely. So it's also for me to see where we are, what I have to talk about, and for you also to get a hook when you get a bit lost, so that you can get in again. What is production? Any idea? I know that all of you are students. Some might have finished already, some might still do a master. What production is? I won't wait long. When my parents, maybe this I have to tell, my parents never understood what it was becoming a dancer, and they, when I went to Brussels, they also really cut with my finances, because they didn't want that I became a dancer. And then later I became production manager, but they still didn't know what I was doing. And then I explained them always, everything, if you go to theater performance and the venue, so everything you do not see, that's my job. And this is what we will talk about today. I don't know if some of you have already created their own stage work or something. No? And because production is a very broad package of tasks. As I said right now, You go to a venue, you see performance, everything you do not see, you might call production. Of course, there are different parts of it. You do not always see the technicians. You do not always see the people that created the website, that created the costumes. This is other things that belong to a performance, but most of it is coordinated by the production people. So it's all practical and often administrative stuff. And it holds everything and everyone together. So it's kind of, for me, a kind of nanny, a kind of mama or papa of the entire company within the artistic process and beyond. Why? This person actually organizes everything. It's mostly the person that stands up in the morning and at the first and takes care that the breakfast is there and goes to bed at the latest, at the end, when everyone sleeps already and says goodbye to everyone, because from travel to your needs, everything mostly is in the hands of production. And probably here, Stephanie, you might know, we could call her the production manager for this event. And Mathieu, she's, I don't see, yeah, voilà. These are the people that you could call production manager for this event. So they booked your travels, that you came here, your hotel, and so on. So now you have an idea. Because you are artists, or you want to become artists, you want to become dancers, and how to transform it into this nice moment on stage, where everyone comes to watch and is amazed, but it's quite a long way to go. In the beginning, when you at the beginning of your career, mostly you have to do everything yourself. Of course, you do not have money, no company yet. Maybe some friends will help out, but still, you have an idea and you need to do it yourself. That's totally normal. You have to deal with it. Later, someone might take over, like I did with Arco Renz, Cobalt Works, I just explained. We came both from parts. He wanted to go more the artistic way. I became a manager, and he said, let's do it together. And while I had my real job in my spare time, I played his manager, and he did create his stuff, and like this, bit by bit, in the beginning without no money and so on. And now he has a company. So it can work a bit this way. So don't get too easy, too fast, frustrated. In the beginning, it's quite a lot of own work that you have to invest and that you have to organize until maybe someone takes over or someone you might find to collaborate with. But be patient. Nevertheless, and that's the nice thing when you start your own work, it's always good to think or to try to put yourself into the mind of all the other people you work with. Because only like this you can understand how they function. You can understand what are their needs, what are the sensibilities of each of them. And that keeps the group alive, that keeps the atmosphere, that makes the result great, actually. So don't forget the people around you, even if you are totally stressed, totally anxious, or not sure of yourself. Try to cope with it in a way that consider it as a group, and everyone's contribution is as important as yours, as from person B, C, whatever. So that's what I said. It's like, for instance, when I did production, I often stayed with the technicians for the breakdown to understand what is this light for, and why did I have to ask for a flight case? What is a flight case? So like this, the technicians, they estimate, or they appreciate your presence. They can explain a little bit their work. And at the same time, when you have to organize something for them, you also understand what it is. Why, for instance, do I have to book in an airplane a seat for a cello, an instrument? And the musician would really not want to travel without his cello, or the cello beside him in the airplane. You think that's crazy. But later, if you know why, you understand it. So that's actually the reason that you should keep that in mind, what I just said. Okay, but now you've got an idea, and how do you make that it becomes true? What I mostly did in the beginning, and still do, when you do something completely new, you try to imagine how it might look like later, and what you would need in order to do so. So when I look at the performance, I sit in the venue and I say, wow, that's a great thing, what I see. What could be behind all this that is needed in order to get it on stage? Things that might pop up in your mind, of course, visible performers, producers, manager, a company, technician, money, rehearsal space, costumes, and of course a venue to perform. But how to get there? So the idea, it's you. You have the idea. You want to bring it on stage. Later it has to be developed and organized until we come to the point, to the day that you have the creation, the premiere, the first night in the venue. The audience is there. Ideally, you go on tour. I think on tour, yeah, we talked about yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And don't forget at the end, archiving. Your work, is it well registered like he does today? Are the photos, are they lost or are they nicely placed somewhere in the cloud or on the server? You might be thankful some years later, and also your funders, your co-producers, they would really appreciate if you have a nice archive. Today, so the idea is yours. We will only talk about the blue points. Tour was yesterday, and archiving might be another time. So the idea is a starting point. I would advise to you as beginners, it's like this. Keep it in the beginning, keep it simple and realistic. If you start right away in thinking of, I need 5 horses on stage that come in with 3 Ferraris and the top opens, Klaus Ludwig could do it. You're not at this point yet. So try in the beginning to keep it as simple as possible, to introduce actually your value, your own ideas and work to the world. And always, but still indeed, do not stop dreaming. I don't mean that one day you cannot bring your horse on stage. Perfect, do it. But in the beginning, keep it easy. Otherwise, you will get stuck right away and frustrated. And always have plan A, your dream, but also plan B ready. If something goes wrong, or you do not have enough funding or whatever, that you still can do what you'd like to do in a kind of smaller version of a bit different style or fewer people. We will come to it later. But that's something I've seen in the past that works quite well. Beforehand, right, you have an idea and think already about 2 different or 3 different paths you might need to go, so that still you have something achieved without perhaps plan A, but still there is something. A lot, of course, depends on the idea itself. Will it be a solo work? So just yourself on stage or someone else? More people on stage? Do you want to use multimedia, stage set, or empty stage, costumes or not, other special stuff? This has all influence on what is needed, how much funding you need, and so on. For me, and it's not a science what I'm telling you now, it's just what I think, how I did work in the past. There are 5 important axes. The people and their functions, so for instance, a dancer, a technician, a costume designer, a manager, production people. The finances, of course, budgeting, negotiations with partners, the planning, rehearsal schedules, the booking of spaces, travel, and so on, but also administration. And last but not least, promotion. But also this all depends on the partners you might find. Maybe you find a venue that takes over the promotion for you, and maybe you have a venue that sells the ticket and organizes the public, so you do not have to take care of it. But maybe you, for the first time, you need to do everything yourself. You rent a space, you sell the tickets yourself. You need to find people that come to watch your performance. Then, of course, you have to think of promotion, or how to promote your piece, how to advertise it somewhere that the people are also coming and you do not perform in front of empty seats. Let's start with the people. For me, it's the most important and fragile part of the entire creation because we work with people. And as you know, everyone has his or her character. Everyone has a different background. Someone gets up quite tired in the morning. The other one is full of energy, which might sometimes crash in the rehearsal space. But like I said in the beginning, it's very important if you want to do something and you are the boss or you are the leader, watch the other people and also look at their signals so that you always can interfere or that you always can manage the people that yeah, they do not get frustrated. And in the beginning, especially when you talk with them, when you try to look for your people, somehow think about also about the group as such. It's maybe better to use person A together as person C, because person B and A, maybe they are not really functioning well together. So it's also something how you have to think of a creation. How does a group look like? How does a group work together? Because sometimes you have 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks somewhere outside, away from home, and live together. And this way, it's good that the group also outside the venue, outside the rehearsal space, is going well together. It's an advice. You don't have to respect it or do it, but it's what I've seen in the past. Also important is that you're honest with yourself somehow. You think about yourself, what are the things you can do well, and what are the things actually you are not so good at, and which might someone else can do better than you. And of course, quite important, whom you want to have on stage. You think about it in order to draw a bit the picture of your idea before you contact people. But like I just said, choose the people you would like to work with wisely, in a way that you really achieve what you want to achieve, and that they support you, but also you support them. So like I just said, be very honest with yourself. What can I do well? Where am I very bad at? I used this also when I created Caravan Production, the management office. I thought, okay, this and this are my strong points, but I'm very bad in creating websites or thinking of promotion or whatever. I talked to Karen. She is a communication manager from Wim van der Kevis, Ultima West. And then she came from Ultima West to Caravan to help me out. And like this, we created this group that became bigger and bigger, because we always used the strong sides from everyone in order to bring it into our office, and that helped quite a lot. So it's not worth it that you try to do something where you're not good at. You will only get frustrated at the end. Also something for myself, I always tell to myself, is knowing your own limits is the key to success. So if you know what you cannot do well, don't try it. You are not good at it. For me, it's if you know your limits, give it to someone else, this task. And that will help you to advance. And like I just said, just use your stronger points. Coming from the people to the finances, the second axe I mentioned. What we are talking about today is a professional creation where, let's imagine, everything is paid. So I'm not talking about the work that you might do because you didn't find any funding yet, so you ask 2 friends to come to help you out for 2 weeks and you make together a nice piece of half an hour that you can present. We're talking today about the professional life where everything is ideally financed and paid. So that is my starting point, actually, of my point for today. What I will show you now a little bit is how, because it's necessary to determine and calculate a budget, because that's quite important if you work with people, even if you work alone, but you want to create something, there is some money that you would need. And in order to do so, you have to estimate how much you would need, what kind of things you would need something. So for you to explain, a budget is made of 2 kind of, let's say, scales. Well, scales is the right thing, columns. The one is for what is needed in financial terms. We call it costs. You might know this word. And on the other side is income. So the costs and the income should be somehow balanced. And like this, you finance your creation, your idea. What are costs? Could be for renting a space or residencies. For props you might need on stage, perhaps for fees, wages. And then you have different kind of people or different kind of collaborators. You might work with freelancers or with employees. Taxes is an issue. What is the difference between a freelancer and an employee? A fee is actually someone who gives you an invoice. That's the most easy thing. A technician says, no, I'm a freelancer, and you agree to pay him 1,000 euros. He comes with, at the end with an invoice, you pay it, it's done. An employee, you have an employer, like for instance, the STUK, where I work. We have about 44 people working there. So we are the employer, and these people get their salary, and we pay for them the social charges, health insurance, the taxes, and so on, and they get their net salary more nicely on their bank account. Or you have a company, for instance, and you work as an employer. These are wages, so you're kind of, the responsibility is different in the way a freelancer has to take care of himself totally, in the way his own insurance, his own health care, and so on, while an employee is being taken care of by the employer, so by the company or by the arts center and what so on. You do not have to keep it now in mind, it's just that you know there are some different status when you work with people together. And you should never forget taxes, because each country wants to have income. And when you as an artist travel abroad and you get a fee somewhere else, probably this venue has to take away some taxes and give it to the state you are working in. Budget for transportation and goods, of course. If you want to have a stage set, it needs to be put in a van, and the van has to be rented. So you have to foresee it. Travel costs, of course, for yourself, for the technicians, for the people. Accommodation, eventually per diems. I guess you know already what per diems is. If not, per diems is kind of money, kind of a little amount that you get in order to cover costs that you have when you are somewhere abroad or somewhere on the road that you would not have at home. For instance, you are here now, and imagine you would perform tonight, and after this you go to the hotel, but the hotel has no kitchen, whatever, so you go to a restaurant. It's expensive. So as a dancer, you would get mostly a per diem in order to cover this extra costs between your own kitchen at home and what a restaurant costs. It's more this what you could imagine what we call per diem. Well, other costs would be for promotion, I said. Office supplies might also be something, paper, ink for a printer. Financial costs, if later you want to have your own bank account, all little costs you might need to think of. Not everything is always needed, but just give you some ideas. And this list is not exhaustive, so it can be as long as you want. I just give you some examples of the most common costs. And what I advise to you, always keep a little reserve when estimating the costs you have for your idea, your creation. Add something. I would propose 5%. You could also do 10%. There might always go something wrong. Maybe a dancer gets sick and you need to replace him or her, and then you have to have extra costs for some days to rehearse with the extra dancer, or something breaks, you have to repair it, and so on. So that at this point, you could use the reserve. Income, co-production fee, performance fee, what it is, I will talk in a minute about it. Ticket income, if you do everything yourself, so if you organize everything yourself. Funding by the state, city, or private funding. And also, last but not least, royalties or author rights. Your work somehow could also be protected in a way you have in France, for instance, SACD, in Germany, GEMA, some other country might have other organizations that where you could protect your work. So each time you perform it somewhere for some people, you might also get kind of author rights for each performance, which you could use in order to finance your creation. It's rather small, so it's not an important point, but just to give you a hint or give you an idea that this might be a little extra for your budget too. I quickly created a random budget just like this. I imagined something to give you an idea how does a budget look like actually, because for most of the people it's like, whoo, I get scared when looking at numbers. So I put quickly here, for the camera I shouldn't go too much there. On the left side you see rental costs, accessories or props, fees, accommodation. On the second column, I think yeah, it's not really visible. On the you have remarks like the details, rehearsal studio, or in the second row, office supplies, stage set, costumes. If you look, for instance, by the costumes, I imagine 3 dancers on stage. So for each dancer, I think of 300 euros I would use to buy costumes just to go shop. So 3 times 300 would be 900. Then for the fees, you are the choreographer. You say, okay, I'm happy with 5,000 euros. And I would like to work with 3 dancers on stage, and each of them should get 4,300. A technician is needed. I will work with a costume designer. So I have to pay him or her 2,100 euros, which makes it in total 24,000 for fees. Accommodation, yeah, someone is needed. Someone comes from abroad and has to stay for 15 days in a hotel room, I think of it. When we go further, like I said, catering per diems, I'd like to give everyone during their rehearsal, we are 4 people during 15 days, a lunch for 4 euros each lunch. So I foresee 240 euros just for the lunch for the 2 weeks. Travel costs, one dancer might come from Paris, cost, let's say, one travel, 250 euros. A technician has to travel twice from Berlin for 175 euros one way. So he goes forth and back for 350 euros. And yeah, transport, you say no stage set, for instance, so no transportation needed, 0. Author rights, as I just explained to you, you could protect your work, your creation, but also other people protect their work, like musicians, composers. So when you use music, do not forget this music might be protected. So when you want to use it, you might need to pay author rights in order to use it. Often it's done by the venue where you perform, but could also be that in the beginning you decide to organize everything yourself. You sell the tickets. Do not forget, you have to get in touch with the organization that protects this music you'd like to use, and you have to pay money for it. Mostly it's a percentage of your ticket income, but it could also be that they say we want minimum 1,000 euros, even if you do not sell any ticket. Could be. But just to give you an idea, do not forget it, otherwise you will have to pay it from your own money later. And also some technical costs might be, you want a beamer in your performance and some LED lights. And as I just said, at the end, here more or less 5%, a reserve of 1,700. The income side, I did now calculate only until the premiere. It's not the first performance itself, so I left the tickets outside. I would say, okay, I got a co-production fee from Brussels Kunstfestival des Arts for 10,000 euros and one from STUK, 5,000 euros. So I have 2 partners that help me with 15,000 euros in total. Tanz im August in Berlin gives a little bit less, 3,000 euros, but I might have a residency there. So it's a kind of collaboration. Once again, what is the difference between co-production and collaboration? I come back to it later. And you've got a performance fee, which I left 0 now because, like I said, this is only the 15 days that you rehearse that I propose now to you. And one theater might reimburse the travel costs of the technician, the 350 euros, so I can add it at my income. Which makes it, if you like to have a kind of overview, where am I in the beginning of my creation? You haven't done anything yet. You just try to imagine your idea, what is needed, and how much it could cost. Might look like this. On the left side, or the summary of what we just said. On the right side, the income. And as you see, there's a lack of, or balance, a lack of money of 17,565 euros, which somehow we have to find. And in order, so the golden rule in your budget, before you start, it should always be balanced. So the income should always be as much as the costs you have. If not, at the end, you will have to pay yourself. It's nice when you can do it, but it's not nice if you do not have the money. And of course, you also have to make your own living. So if like the exercise we just did, you realize, it doesn't work out. I miss 18,000 euros. Well, quickly go work for 4 months. No, there are 3 other options you could think of. you reconsider the amounts. So you go again through all the amounts and say, did I calculate well? Or perhaps I used the price to Paris from 2 weeks ago, but now there's a promotion, and if I book tomorrow, it's only half price. You could lower the cost for the travel to Paris. Or you say, well, actually the LED lights, the venue around the corner gives it for free. You could cut it, as you could reduce this cost as well. You might also consider not working with a dancer that comes from outside, from abroad, because the travel costs might be too high. But anyway, check again all the amounts if they're calculated on a correct basis, or maybe you could lower them a little bit. If it doesn't work, or it might be a total another option, of course, finding new sources, finding somewhere else money that could cover or at least a part of the 18,000 euros that is missing. And last, really the last thing you have to do, if it doesn't work out, if anything works, it's a budget cut. And this is what I just said. You might say, okay, 3 people on stage is too much. I can only work with 2, but then myself, I will step onto the stage. So I'm still 3, but me as a choreographer, I will be on stage 2. And you save right away 4,000 euros, the fee for one dancer. Could be an option. It's not nice, but necessary at the end when nothing works out. Like I said in the beginning, plan A and plan B. Yeah? So plan B would be a budget cut, for instance, that they say, my minimum budget that I really need in order to make what I want to make is 10,000 euros, but then you really have to cut to 10,000. Okay, so how could we cut it? I just gave you already some hints. The number and the function of people, maybe a costume designer, you drop her or him and you go to a shop around the corner and buy a sweatshirt and trousers and shoes. You could reconsider perhaps the fees you pay. Maybe you wanted to do everyone a favor and you paid quite well. And now you say, pity, I cannot. Is it okay if we work for 5 euros less a day? Things like this. You could reduce the number of rehearsal days, but always keep in mind, especially in the beginning, you have a creation, you have a process. It might take time also for you to reconsider. You might get stuck somewhere, might need to restart of it. And as closer you get to a premiere, as more stress it will be for you. Often what I've seen in the past is that people say, okay, the first week I come for free and then I need to get paid. Would be also an option if everyone agrees in order to do it anyway, the creation. Travel days, also something, is a travel day paid, yes or no? It's actually time from the people, they need to travel. What we did with Caravan, for instance, that we said it's 50%. So when you have to travel, this day is paid half. That we have created kind of rule that for everyone, it was clear. That would be the rule because they sit relaxed in the train, but at the same time they cannot work anywhere else, so they get half of the fee. Could be something. Could also be that you discuss with everybody and say, okay, no payment for the travels because we do not have the money. The working period, I just said, you might cut a little bit. And also local circumstances. Actually, I forgot my cell phone. Why did I put? It's because a theater around the corner could give you a space for free. Or you do not have a huge space with daylight, but you go into a little basement, dark, okay. But at least it's something because it's cheaper. So this might be also an option. And of course, like I said, stage set, yes or no, or reduced version, costumes. If you have to do promotion yourself and you want to translate it into different languages, perhaps you translate it yourself, or you cut a language. You say, okay, then I can only do it in 2 languages instead of 3. This might also be options you could use. Okay, let's go back to the budget. We said we have a lack of almost 18,000 euros. What to do, how to find it. If we look at new sources, new ways to finance it, I would add or try public funding. That's something which works in some countries, not in all countries. We are here, like for instance in Belgium, we have quite strong system for project subsidies, so we are quite happy about it. Other countries, especially Eastern Europe, public funding is quite low. So it's also something what you have to consider. Where do I want to make my creation? Where do I come from? what is the average of the amount people might get when asking for subsidies. So let's say I ask the state now for 17,565 euros, and if I get it, I could add it on the right side, and then my balance is 0, and I could start working with what I imagined now. So the balance, everything is there. I have enough income. It covers all the costs. Great. We can go for it. Very often it happens along the way. That means the moment comes closer that you want to start, but your budget is not ready yet. It's a risk you have to take, that you say, well, what are my chances to still get it done while rehearsing? Ideally, you know everything beforehand, but very often it happens only that during the creation you will know if you can make it or not. Again, have plan A and plan B ready. What is if 3 weeks before the show, the premiere, suddenly the subsidies are only 14,000 instead of 17,000? That you know what you could do if you have 3,000 less. Some advices: when you do your budget, be realistic. Start really from dreams in the way that I always start with the maximum budget. You put everything in it, what you want, what you imagine, but at the same time you do also a minimum budget, so you know the kind of gap, the balance, or you know the room you can play with or you can play in. That's quite important, so that you say, if I do not have a minimum of 10,000 euros, we cannot do it. At the same time, they say, well, if we have I don't know how much I had now in total, 35,000 or 36,000 euros on the top, on the green field, you see it, would cost my creation, and I have it, great. But if I have only 10, yeah, then I can only do this, but it's still okay for me. So always do a maximum and a minimum budget in order to be prepared for any situation that might occur. Be transparent. In a way, when you create your budget, your financial plan, transparent is meant in a way that later you have to present it maybe to a programmer who asks, oh, I want to show your work, but how much does it cost? So he has to be able, or she has to be able to read it. So be transparent, do not lie or try to hide things. Just put it on the table like it is in a clear and proper way. It will be appreciated and is much better for the communication. Also, about this I will talk in a few minutes. And like I said in the beginning, keep in a little reserve for emergencies if something happens that you can do. At the same time, even if you have to cut whatever the budget, never calculate too tight. Maybe if one thing happens, you can still balance it out. But if the second and third thing happens, oops, you might get in trouble. So always do it in a comfortable way without having everything too tight, so that with each thing that doesn't go well, you have to take money out of your own pocket. Let's leave the finances. Let's come to another important point, the negotiations. It's quite important in the beginning in the way that you address or you focus on perhaps on venues that you would like to be partner. And these venues you would like that they pay money, or that they give you rehearsal space, or anything else. So what is, perhaps just some ideas, what you could get from partners you're looking for. Rehearsal space, of course, co-production or production fee. I did it in breaks. Why? A production fee, perhaps there's a venue that wants to produce your work entirely. That would be, wow, great. You do not have to take care of everything. They say, here, 35,000 euros, just go for it. And we do all the rest, which is very rarely the case, but possible. A co-production fee, what does it mean? I get back to it later, as I said. A performance fee, that's the fee you get for the performance when you go on stage the first night and on tour. You might also get administrative support, of STUK for administrative support. You might work in France, but you do not any law in France. So you might ask the venue there, oh, could you help me out with all this administrative stuff? They might agree to it. Technical support, you get a residency I think it's tomorrow Pierre comes to talk about residencies, so I won't go too much into those details now. But you have residencies with and without technical support. When you come to STUK, for instance, we always give it with. That means you enter the venue and you say, oh, it would be nice to have some lights. And could we maybe have this here? And it would be good to close all the windows. When we give residencies, it's possible. We always have one technician standby that could help you out. Other places might be just empty places. But these things you might want to have. Coming to all this huge diversity of collaborations, co-production, collaboration, just partnership, whatever you call it, there's no real definition what is a co-production, what is a production. It's some people give 1,000 euros and say it's a co-production, and other people give 20,000 and say it's a co-production. There are different ways of different formats, a more informal and more formal one. You can get financial support or just services in kind. And with services in kind, I mean, for instance, that what we sometimes do, we give you a technician. So it's actually money you have foreseen in your budget in the beginning to pay a technician. But now the venue says, well, we have a period where we have almost nothing to do and one technician is free, so we are happy to leave them with you for 3 weeks. Perfect. It's not money that you get, but a value for money, so you can cut this out of your budget because the technician is already there, and you might even be able to travel with you on tour. And like I just said, yeah, to place something at someone's disposal might also be that the venue has a beamer, and in order to rent it, you do not have to rent any beamer anymore because the venue says here you can have it for 1 month, and you are done, and then you can cut it in your budget. Like I said, no real definitions. What is a collaboration? Everything is really, each case is different and each case has to be discussed. But the most common formats of collaborations are residencies, co-production, or we call it collaboration. And what would it be? That's now my own interpretation, how we handle it also at STUK. When you always see in the programs these nice credits, in co-production with, in collaboration with the support of. How you put it there depends on how much money is invested, but also sometimes venues would like to have it in a certain way because otherwise their own funding would get in trouble. So also this kind of stuff has to be discussed. I leave it to the end of the presentation, then I come back to this point. But residencies, if you get a residency, what is it? It's actually a theater or a venue like this would provide you with a space, a rehearsal space. Great. You do not have to pay anymore for a rehearsal space. Would be nice. If necessary, maybe with technical support. Eventually also they have apartments. Great. I do not have to pay a hotel or look at Airbnb for an apartment. I can use their apartment. And eventually also catering, like when we have residencies, the people that come to us, they get their lunch paid. We have two cooks in our venue, and they just come during the rehearsal, have their break, eat there, and then they leave again to work. Could also be something. It's not necessary, but could happen. Collaboration is then a step further, which would be, it's mostly residencies, if they have the space, the venue. Could also be advisors that you say, well, I'm a beginner and I still don't know how to do these things. And they say, okay, come to my office. We sit together for 2 hours and I explain you how to do, or I help you to do with it, with your budget. Or I help you to organize the contracts. Or I have a look at this offer you got from Paris. Could all be. So that's already a kind of collaboration. You get a bit more than just the keys for the studio. And other services in kind, which might be, for instance, that they say, yeah, use our car in order to fetch or to get the stage set here, or use our car to quickly pick up your dancer, would also be something that might help you. That would be a nice thing to have lots of co-productions, because everyone wants to have it, but it gets very rare as funding gets less in all the countries. But that's what actually everyone seeks for. What is a co-production? It's a collaboration, what I just mentioned, but with a substantial amount of money. Also, there is no minimum. For some people, it's 2,000. For other people, they start at 10,000, what they call co-production. More important is sharing responsibilities. So when you co-produce as a venue, you put your own name, you glue it to the name of the artist. And actually, what the artist does, the result is a shared result. It's also a kind of image that the venue gets. So if Andrew from Liverpool comes and I co-produce him, and he performs then somewhere in Berlin, it will stay there in co-production with STUK, for instance. And then, when some people come to see Andrew, this is what STUK does. This kind of work STUK supports. So it's also good later, I come back to it in a few seconds, that you always look at these credits. When you like a work, you look at it, you say, yeah, they are the co-producers, the collaborators. Then you get an idea which venues might also work this way or have this kind of profile. What could happen, it's very rare, but it's more in the movie world, it's quite often, that the co-producer asks for a return. What does it mean? So I give you 10,000 euros for your creation, but later when it goes well on tour, from each performance you sell, I would like to have 10% of the performance fee. You have to pay me back. So in the movie world, it's very often, and like this, Hollywood finances the studios. In the dance world, it's rare, but could happen. Mostly is it like this, that you get a co-production fee, and then the venue says that's okay, happy with, and you go your way. So, however, for the co-producer, it's a kind of investment. They give you much more than just the money. They might also offer you people. They might offer you help with what we do sometimes. We, for instance, employ some dancers because they might not have a status to be able to work in Belgium. So we organize the work permits for him, and. This is also what a co-producer does. So it goes much beyond just the money. Doesn't have to, but can. That's also something that you have to discuss later with the people you'd like to collaborate of. If you find a partner, really determine what are the things you give to us, but also, I come back to it still, that you're ready for what do I need, what do I want? Because often it's like, I need money. Oh, it's boring, it's not interesting. So if there are many other things you could ask to a venue, and the venue would be happy to provide it. Sharing an image, I just said already, support for promotion, for instance, could also be, I think Walter did on Wednesday about networking. Once you collaborate, you could also somehow drop your name when talking to other programmers. So it's also a kind of thing a co-producer could do. Help actually distributing your work. And could also be ideally that you are the artist in residence in a certain venue where you have the right for 2 or 3 creations to come back all the time. And you already now know in 2 years my creation is also financed and supported by the venue I'm just talking about, which I put at the end. So co-production is actually a nice thing, but heavy to get. And just to give you a last idea, even although it was probably she talked about it yesterday, when negotiating a performance, somehow the fee, it's important that you are very clear what does the venue should pay, and the other way around, that the venue really knows what they are paying. Because when you perform somewhere, you want to get paid your people the fee on stage, but you also might have travel costs, accommodation, the food, other taxes that might occur. So what I was always advise is ask for a performance fee plus. That's how we call it. And the plus is the travel, accommodation, transportation, per diems, royalties, taxes. What is the difference? In France, you have it very often that they say, here, you have 5,000 euros, organize it yourself. Might be great. We have 5,000 euros. But might be also bad luck, because maybe just that day the airplanes are so expensive that from the 5,000 euros you are only 1,000 left to pay your people, because 4,000 is for travel. Might be the other way around, that you take the best prices, the promos, the special offers, and you only need 1,000 to travel, and you have 4,000 left for your people. I always preferred to have the one that I said, this performance fee, and the venue pays the rest, because then the responsibility is with the venue to cover the travel, to organize the hotel. Mostly the venue has also special prices with certain hotels. It's all to be discussed, but do not forget it when later talking with venues about these fees. I tell you now, negotiations as production managers, it could also be that the manager does it later, but as you are a beginner, I imagine that you do not have and a manager and a production manager and that one person actually is like everything together, and maybe you're even your own production manager. That's why I put also these things here on screen, which is not totally linked to production, but has somehow to do with it. In a way, someone has to do it. And if there's no one around, then at the end, it's yourself. Okay, when communicating with the venues, and that's very often the production person, because somehow, like I said in the beginning, the person that organizes, the production person organizes everything and holds everything together. So all the practical stuff, who will arrive when, and how many people, and are there some allergies, or are there perhaps, I need a special treatment, massage before, because I'm very intense on stage. That goes all through the production people that have to communicate it to the venue. So it's important, the kind of information you give to them, and also the timing. Do not come up with things last minute, like calling them, oh, we arrive tomorrow morning at 4 o'clock and we need a taxi or come to pick us up at the airport. They might be able to do it, but they might also be not happy and not coming anymore. So keep in your mind, talking to venues, whereas often there's a structure behind some people that might be busy within a festival. It's not that I can do like this and everything is done. So in order to keep them comfortable and you comfortable, think well ahead. Okay, maybe I better tell them 2 months before when I arrive and not just 2 days before. Of course, there might always be moments with last minute things. Someone gets sick, flight is canceled, whatever, COVID. Everyone is happy to help you out, but do not make it a habit. That's actually what I'm trying to say. When communicating with the venues, whatever to tell to them, be clear, honest, and precise. What do I mean with honest? It's no need to hide. For instance, could be you negotiate with them and you have a partner where you know, or I had it once in the past. I had in France 2 co-producers, but when they heard from each other that they co-produced the same thing, they said no, because they didn't want to appear the same line in the program. So that's something you have to keep in mind. There might be some rivals in the field as well. I had it once in Brussels as well with some people, and you have to choose. Still, whenever you talk to people, be honest, explain your project, also explain your partners. It might be in a positive way. Might also be that then problems occur, you could solve before they get to know this on another way. Now, some important parts. When you try to look for partners, choose them wisely. And it doesn't make sense to send out 100 mails to 100 venues because you got a list from your friend with nice email addresses. When I, for instance, I'm not a programmer, but when I often get mails from people, I thought, oh, that's actually for a programmer. But you see in the mail, he didn't even look at our website, for instance. It's just a standard mail he or she did send out. You do not answer. You just erase it. You do not have a look at it. But if you personalize your mail, you know why you contact someone. And then better to contact 10 people, but in a really good way, knowing what you're doing. And they also, when they open the mail, see, actually he or she looked at my website, at my profile, knows why I'm contacted. That works much better. And then when you imagine you find your partners, you think, that fits to me. Try also to think about possible ways how to trigger the collaboration. You might have an idea for a festival, 100 years Berlin, of 100 years of, I don't know, this school, and you want to do something around. and you know, oh, Walter has a new festival, and he actually has the same theme or the same kind of things. Oh, perfect. You could try to get in touch with him. Or certain connections in the past you might have danced there, and then a kind of collaboration came out. Or the profile of the house that you say, oh, actually, I'm a beginner, and this house there somewhere in Liverpool only presents young beginners, might be an option. Then it's worth contacting them. Or regional things that you know they have a festival where they only show local artists. Perfect. Then it's worth to talk to them. But once again, like I said a bit before, always keep in mind what you want from them. Just don't be prepared. That's actually my message. Be prepared. It's not worth it to say, oh, actually, I want to do a piece with 2 dancers, and they always spin. Then you won't, nothing catchy. You might say, oh, actually, I have the 2 dancers that want to spin, but I need a venue like yours, because you have these nice things there and they reflect nice on stage. It looks like I'm working outside. I'm telling a bit nonsense now, but just to tell you, always really be prepared what is exactly what you need from the people, how they could serve you the best. And like I just said, don't send out too many mails. You won't get answered. You will get frustrated. It fills only the mailboxes of the venues, and you lose credibility. You're much wiser. Take your time, choose carefully, invest the time to contact these 10 potential partners instead of 50, and then getting frustrated because not even 45 have answered. And like I said, always know why you address them. Maybe one thing, when talking to them, you might have tried to convince them what is the value you bring into this venue. Because whatever you do, it should be a win-win situation. The venue will be happy to have you. You will be happy to be there. So let them know, or try to imagine what I could bring in, what makes also the venue nicer. I cannot give you an idea now right away, but you might have something where you say, well, this kind of work has never been presented here, but it's a new way, a new experience for the audience. And if this was seen in this venue, wow, it's very special, and it will attract many other people from outside, whatever. Could be something that the venue would like to have, because it also promotes their own name. And like I said, I often realize that people never have looked even at the website what we do, and still contact us. So go there and check out what is happening before you take any action. One thing, when communicating with production to organize something with a venue, you have a partner, everything is settled, you can come to perform. Don't let the mails too long unanswered, or only answer half. That's very frustrating for the people that work in the venues in order to organize something. You want, when you come, that they welcome you very warmly, and also the people in the venues are very eager to welcome you. But they're only really motivated when they feel, oh, it's nice, we had a nice chat with each other. Oh, I'm very curious who's coming now, because it was so nice feeling already beforehand. But if someone that we always have to drag from, can you answer please, or we need this now, because otherwise, then it's more like, okay, they come now, fine. Okay, they perform, great performance. Okay, see you, bye, ciao. And you miss your chance for the future to be welcomed again, perhaps. So always, when you have partners, respect them as they will respect you, and try really to answer on time. Doesn't mean that you have to do it the same day. My mails, I read them in the mornings, and then I do not look at the mailbox anymore, and I do it again the next morning. So when you send me a mail, at least you have to wait 1 day to get an answer. Like 20, 30 years ago, you send a letter, and then it took two weeks until you had the first answer. So with the emails today, it becomes so fast, and no one expects you to answer right away, but answer on time and with the realistic timing. Like I said, it should be a win-win situation. What also would be good when you talk to your partners, or even for the first time, take your budget with you, because they might not be able to give you money. But when they see, for instance, like I said in the beginning, oh yeah, you need a technician. Well, we have one. It's perfect timing. That's the period you need. Here you have him. Could also help. That's why it's important that you bring your budget with you detailed, and you can have a look at it. You can say this and these are our points. Sometimes easier for a venue to give you services in kind or take some stuff over instead of paying cash money, and it helps you as well. Did I forget some? No. So what can venues actually offer? What could you ask? Well, it's so different. Each venue is totally different. The size of the rooms are different. Maybe daylight, maybe not. Maybe you can have a huge stage because towards the end you would like to rehearse on stage or with stage conditions, like you would really perform. It would be good to be already in the venue itself. Sometimes it works, sometimes not. But I can only tell you what more or less we can offer with STUK. Rehearsal space, like I said, with or without technical support, mostly with. We foresee, if you come close to a premiere, foresee mostly the huge venue for you so that you really can create your performance already as it would be. Catering, accommodation, we have apartments, administrative support. Often I also sit together with people and then we manage their contracts, or we manage some other things, or I just help them to apply for subsidies. What we also do sometimes, that the subsidy money, it's a special Belgium system, comes onto our account from STUK, but it's actually owned by the artists, but we manage the income, we pay the people, all this kind of stuff we could also do. We could also employ people, like when they need to have their rights, social rights and so on, and you are just alone, you do not have a structure, a company, we could take it over during the time of your creation. And of course, networking, sometimes we can also offer in the sense, like I just said, if Karin, our programmer, she likes the work and she comes together with other programmers, she might drop the word, yeah, the Andrew from Liverpool, great performance last night, and you really should have a look at it. That's also something what you could ask. Very quickly, that's why the partners you could imagine without giving it too much weight, because their partners is broad like this. But this is important for me. A partnership, you should always consider like this is a shared experience. It's not that you only get or you only take. Also, the venue gets something from you for them, and the other way around. The venue gives you something. So it's from both sides, and it should be an open dialogue and shared responsibility. And this is the heart of the collaboration. So if you manage to have this nice relationship, half of the goal is achieved. Let's call it like this, and they will be happy to welcome you again. Okay, planning, scheduling, very important. Think ahead. Like I just said, do not come 1 week before some, I need to, You will stress all the people around you in your group, but you will also stress the venue itself. You might not be able to book anymore the rehearsal space you wanted because it might be taken. The technician you really wanted to have because he does an amazing light, he's not available anymore. You might also consider different periods of the season. If you plan your creation that it premieres, has its first night in April or May, the chance that you are still in the season program of the next season, certain venues, is quite small. On the other hand, imagine you are in Brussels, Kunstenfestival des Arts, taking place in May, and you just live beside Brussels. Putting then a performance there might be a good thing, because programmers are already in Brussels and might be able to come to look or to see it. Could also be that you say, well, in summer, actually much more studios are free, or they're much cheaper. So be flexible as much as possible, and think also strategically in the way that you plan your creations somehow that the chance that you are seen is a bit higher. What kind of spaces would you need and when? It's a very important question you should ask yourself, like I said, when talking to the people, to the venues. Is it with or without technical support or stage conditions towards the end? Check also the availabilities of the people you're working with or you want to work with. If you talk to 3 dancers, and suddenly 2 of them are not available at the moment at the festival where you have your first night. Yeah, it's no sense to work with them. Or you have to try to change the date of the festival. It's also an option. But that's what I meant. Think ahead that these kind of obstacles do not occur. And do not schedule too tight. In a way, what I've seen in the past, throughout the process of creation, yeah, ideas might change. Arco was a world champion in this kind of stuff. He changed mostly every creation 2 days before the first night, totally everything. And it was a totally different piece. I exaggerate a bit, but almost. So do not schedule things too tight that you get really stuck in something and say, oh, it doesn't work anymore. If possible, keep it as large, as broad as possible. Because you will get automatically stressed towards the premiere. It's normal. You're not ready yet because you're never ready. But still, like this, at least you have the feeling of something. Administration. Very difficult part. Normally nothing what the the production people should take care of, but for a bit at least you have to have an understanding what it is. In STUK, for instance, although I am responsible for the entire administration, our production people manage the contracts. So they put everything together, like the programmers negotiate with the artists about fees, whatever, accommodation and so on. Then it goes to the production people, and they put it on mail and somehow put everything in one contract together with the artist. It's read and then comes on my table in order to sign it. So there's still a little bit of understanding you need to have for administration also, that you know, for instance, when someone enters a country, what kind of documents this person has to have, because as a production people, you mostly travel with the artist. But everything is really, each country is different, each country has a different law, and it makes it quite difficult. Nevertheless, and actually also because of this, my own perception of administration is considered as creative too. People might also think, oh, it's boring and it's only this and it has to be no. In culture, the law, it's almost, you have to look at everything behind the line, in between the lines. It's nothing is really written for culture, which makes it sometimes quite hard for us to ask for a visa or whatever, because they say, no, in the law it's like this. But it's actually none of the cases you face is written in the law. So you have to be creative in order to get it done, in order to get someone. I had one when I worked at Kunstenfestival des Arts. He got stuck at the airport in Africa because the paper was missing. And then we had to organize it in 2 days with the embassy and everything, that we still got him to Brussels to perform. Otherwise, the entire performance had to be cancelled. So suddenly you have to be inventive also with the embassy. What do we do? This form we do not have, but without this, no. Mostly you find ways, but you have to try to be easygoing, no stress, and you have to know a little bit the rules, how it goes, how it is, in order to be able to react or to propose something. Also try to have everything on paper as much as possible. Still, it's a kind of paper, and as you see with COVID, for instance, in Belgium it was like this. People that had a contract, they got support by the state for their loss, because suddenly all the performances were cancelled. People without contracts, they didn't get anything. It's just one of the examples. Don't get scared. I put now some examples there: co-production contract, performance contract, residency contract, labor contract. Not all is necessary. For instance, residency contracts we do not do with STUK. We just confirm by mail and everything is fine. But you could do it. You could also keep it a bit by mail, although for co-productions and performances, I would always recommend putting something in the contract. Could something happen? Someone gets sick and the performance has to be cancelled. Who has to pay what? It's better that it's somewhere written. Although, once again, in the cultural field, mostly you sign it on the spot. So you agree on it beforehand, everything, even the contract is fixed, but no one has signed it yet. I did it almost my entire career like this, and it always works because, luckily, people in our sector still, the word counts. And what you say and what you agreed counts. But you could also have bad luck. I had it once in Brazil. We arrived there for the festival, and then in Brazil they said, no, we do not pay the sum anymore. And that was a bit, yeah, I didn't sign any contract before, like I trusted the people. Could happen, but it was once in my 20 years of experience, so still, as much as possible, try to get it on paper what is agreed. And I have to say, the people in Brazil, how it happened, because their funding were only announced just 2 weeks before the festival, was much less. So they had a reason. It was not that they tried to get out of it, but it's not nice. When working internationally, there are some things you should never forget. You need visas for some people. If you travel within the EU, everything is fine. Work permits, everything is fine. But if you have people coming now from the UK, for instance, or Switzerland, States, Australia, whatever, work permits you might need. It's maybe okay if they're just somewhere in your venue and nobody knows, but as soon as they come on stage, the venues want to see the work permits or could ask them, organize them for you. That's also something they could do. But it's very important. If you have someone in the venue or suddenly there comes a control just before the performance and you do not have a work permit, the show is canceled. Not nice, because then you do not get paid either. There are some forms, you don't have to keep that in mind. It's very detailed now. A1 is called, that you are socially secured when traveling within Europe. And of course, certain costume regulations. When you bring a stage set now to the UK, for instance, you have to bring the same back. And if something is missing, you have to pay a fine. So this kind of things you have to think of. Don't get stressed now. I just give you some examples. When later, when creating stuff or when you do production, you will learn it. But these are things you should never forget when thinking about the creation and traveling. Also, when contacting public administration, like I said, the law, it's very often that our cases are written nowhere. And the civil servants actually said, no, I cannot do it because of. Everything is possible. I had already cases where actually it was not allowed at all, and still being polite, trying via, we got lots of exceptions, and suddenly it worked. So it's very often, not always, but very often, human decisions that even if the law says this, but the decision, the situation might be very comprehensive, and also the civil servant might think, yeah, it's true. I help you. It's something yet it's very important that you, when you talk to those people, do it in a very respectful manner. Never lose your temper, because as soon as you lose, you say, oh, fucking, you close the door, you are lost. When they do not want to move any finger anymore for you. Try to understand also their behavior. They have to follow rules and. But if you somehow get a mutual understanding, you manage, there will be much more doors that can be opened, although not always in the most legal way. Let's say it like this. So let's keep something like this in mind. Promotion. Yeah, like I said, actually it's not so important for you if you work with venues and partners that organize everything for you. Like if you come to STUK, yeah, we sell the tickets. The ticket income is also for us, but we sell the tickets. We organize also that there's public in the venue. We manage our website. You do not have to think about promotions, although you have to provide some material. So photos, for instance. I think when you make a creation before, and also I need nice stage photos, for instance, catchy texts. So do not leave it until the last moment when you are stressed 1 week before the premiere, and suddenly the communication department says, I still need a text for the evening program. Your head will explode. So do it well in advance. And then there are two different kind of promotions, the one towards the public, but also the ones towards the peer group, the programmers. And texts might be different. For an audience, you might need to write it a bit more catchy, while for programmers, a bit more deeper. Be prepared for this too, if you also want to sell your performance to to some people and get them on board. Yeah, and like I said, just do not forget good photos, good text, or either a friend comes or you pay a good photographer. It's really worth it sometimes investing some money in good photos that can also be used later by the press. Because if your performance appears in a newspaper with a good review, some other doors might open. And it's even better if beside the text there's a little photo from you. And the newspaper will be happy to get one if you have a good one. So it's quite important. So we come to the end of the creation. We come to the premiere. So now it's actually, again, the time for the production person to communicate everything, all the practical things. When might people arrive, in which groups, with which airplane, how does the stage set comes, how do we get the keys from the apartment, how do we check in the hotel. All these are things you have to communicate with the venue when doing the production. Same thing like when you came here, what Stephanie, Mattea, what they all did. Talking to you, okay, you come with this train, yeah, and then we pick you up and you got this nice booklet where everything is written on it. This is production work. To organize this, to create this booklet, to find everything, where are the doctors, to note it. Also that you prepare yourself for your dancers. Imagine someone gets hurt just one day before the performance. Is there somewhere a doctor that could help me to fix it until the performance? Yeah, and make sure that it's clear who is taking care of travels, booking for apartments, for the food. Is it the venue itself, or do I have to do it? Because like I said, France says here you have 5,000, book the travels yourself, but then you also have to do it yourself, the other way around. If you come to STUK, and then we always ask, would you prefer to book your travels, yes or no? You decide yourself. But mostly what happens if you do it yourself and we have to pay, we check the prices before. So you are not allowed to do whatever you want. You propose a kind of travel itinerary, I think it's a very good word, and then we agree on the price and then you can book it. Otherwise, a route would be that you tell us when you would like to come and we book it for you. But it's important that these kind of things are agreed and also determined who is taking care of what. Will be people picked up from the station, yes or no, or just a taxi they take and they get reimbursed. And as I said before, these kind of things often are forgotten. Working permits, catering, do we have to allergies and so on. It's quite important. Also the kind of food, are they vegetarians, vegans? It's important information you should provide to the venue beforehand, because they cannot, like our cooks, if they get one day before to know that they're more than half is vegan, they might not have prepared enough. So it's important. Mostly you do it in your technical riders. What is technical rider is actually a kind of little booklet. It comes with your creation where everything is written about how the stage has to be set up, how many people travel, what do they need, and. So this often eats something what you could prepare and you send to the venue and they read it and then they mostly know already 80% of all the information they have to know. So it's called technical rider. Keep it in mind, or production sheet, whatever you would like to call it. It's something that helps everyone if you prepared for each of your creations. And at the end, yeah, think also well ahead of inviting programmers or the peer group to your shows. They have mostly a very, very tight schedule. And if you only invite them 2 weeks before, like, oh, in 2 weeks they're probably, the chance is very little that they come. So when you know already, within, I say, 6 months, I have a premiere, why not already starting a first contact, choose your programmers and let them know in 6 months, I might have this. At least they could put a safer date in their agendas. The chance that they come might be a bit bigger. Promotion we just talked. What was this? Yeah, it's more or less if I still would have time, but maybe we still have 10 minutes more, like if there are questions or things you said that was not clear, of I'm really struggling with this or this, or if I had already this kind of experience, why did it happen? No one? If not, I give you, yeah, you have one?
What is, for example, at STUK, your yearly giving to artists?
It depends on the discipline. For dance, we give the most, but dance is also the most expensive art form. You need much more to do a dance creation than to make an exhibition or a theater piece. A theater piece, you can rehearse almost in your home because you have people that walk around and talk. Dance at home, impossible, so you need a space. And it's also a creation, like in my experience, it's lasts at least 3 to 4 months you need to have for a dance creation, while a theater piece you can do within 6 weeks. So it's also why a dance performance is much more expensive than a theater performance. So in this way, it's difficult to say we give this and this and this. And to be honest, I do not have the figures now in my mind. I think that for dance, it's even if I would give you now a figure, there's so much in it: catering, travel, fees. If I would tell you now that we pay 600,000 euros each year for dance, could be. I think it's 900,000, but I'm not really sure. But there's so much in it. Probably for you, it's now difficult to make something with this figure. But let's say what we mostly do is when we get a proposal, you come with a solo work and you want 5,000 euros per evening. We won't do it, or at least we won't do it just accepting it like this, because we always try to calculate, okay, they ask for 3,000 euros and we have 4 dancers on stage. If you look a bit at our fees we have here in Belgium, and they might come from France, the fees are a bit higher, okay, so we have to pay a bit more, but still it's not realistic. It's no, we can still renegotiate with them and to lower a bit the fee. So this we do. We check the fees in order to have a kind of fair payment. It's not, we try not to get the last out of it, but we want to be fair, so we have enough budget for the entire season and to pay each and every one. If you want to know a bit, Belgium is actually quite regulated in the way that if you employ a dancer in Belgium, you have to pay certain minimum wages. You are not allowed to go under if you are funded by the state. And that's a totally different situation here in Germany, for instance, where it's actually free. You negotiate and you pay. But in Belgium, it's quite regulated, and it depends on the number of years you are dancing already, so of your experience. You have a kind of, yeah, it's kind of a tableau, how you call it, kind of a grid, where I have to look up, okay, he is already 5 years dancing, and then this amount I have to pay at least. It can always be more, of course, and some companies pay more, but it's like what we use as a kind of, yeah, to reflect on the performance fees if you pay. Yeah. Yeah. Can be. You can agree on anything with them. What we sometimes have is they ask for subsidies, but they need support letters stating, for instance, yes, for my creation I have already 3 partners. One is STUK, for instance. They will ask us, please write already a confirmation that you would like to support our creation and that you will do it, ideally already with dates, but sometimes we don't know because subsidies, often you have to ask far in advance, and even our program might not be ready yet. So we might know probably in November, but we cannot say at 20th of November or 21st. So in this way, you often do this kind of half and half things. You agree on, we do it, and let's discuss the rest in 2 months. And then also, we know already, okay, we might give you 10,000 euros, but we have no dates yet. So you do then in relation together, actually. Yeah? And it might even that you have already dates, but later we have to recontact you and say, oh, there's another company and has a little trouble, can we do it a week later? Everything is possible. It's, like I said, the communication, clear, precise, and honest is the best way to do it, and then you can have this kind of things, yeah? That you get bit by bit your thing together, or that you also say, like, COVID now, I didn't manage, so can we do it a year later? Possible, yeah. Someone else? Yeah.
I was wondering, for example, for these residencies at STUK, are you able or have you experienced anyone coming from outside of Europe? Like, are you able to help them to take care of the working permit, or do they have to already have a working permit to come?
Yeah, mostly it's like in the way when they come from outside Europe, just to come for a residency will be quite expensive. Mostly they come with partners that you say, okay, they have, let's say in Belgium, 2 other places for it in Ghent and Kaitiat and Brussels, and then we share costs. And for this period, we ask for the work permits for these people. In this case, when you come from really outside and you have no clue how it works in Belgium, mostly the venue does it for you. Luckily, we have in Belgium a kind of exception rule. If you are not staying longer than 90 days as an artist, as an important famous artist, that's the rule. And famous is, you just have to be announced once somewhere in the newspaper. You have to send us this article, we use it, you're famous, fine. Then you do not need a work permit. But we have to count in the number of days that you work in Belgium. Sometimes it happened once. We had to say, well, we cannot offer this period because you exceed your 90 days, and then the people had to leave again. But other countries say day 1, and work permit is necessary. So it always depends on each country. But this kind of stuff you mostly do together with the venue when you come from abroad, because you do not know the rules. And mostly venues are prepared for this kind of stuff. What happens often when you go to France, as they are so strict, mostly you get also a kind of paper from the venue saying, you have to do this, 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 this. And if you follow it up, everything will be fine. Yeah. Other questions? If not, I think we are almost done. Thanks a lot. I think anyway, this is recorded, and also joint venture there will have the presentation. If later you want to go over it again, it's possible. And if you need to contact me, they also have my address and so on. Yeah. Thanks for listening, and have a nice day, and tomorrow as well. Yeah. Thanks.